Hello and welcome to a special edition of the State of the Fleet Industry video series produced by Automotive Fleet Magazine. And this video series is designed to put a spotlight on the key leaders in the fleet management industry. And today I have the honor to interview Angie Lauer, Assistant Vice President for Enterprise Fleet Management. And we're going to be discussing what we can do in order to minimize delays in the order to delivery process. And Angie's going to share with us her expertise in this area. So I want to thank you, Angie, for joining us.
Okay, great. I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. So before we actually get into the tactical end of it on do's and don'ts in terms of the order cycle, maybe if you could give us the current state of the order to delivery times for 2021 model year orders. We're starting to get those in. And how have the fleet orders been impacted by the pandemic?
Yeah, sure. I think I want to start with just giving a kudos to the OEMs because they've really done a good job getting all their production back up and running after they were shut down in the spring. Their plants were shut down. I think they had so many moving parts to organize, making sure all their transportation companies were organized, that all their suppliers were organized to make sure that they had all the supplies ready, making sure their workers were safe in the factory. That's a lot to keep track of. And we really didn't experience a ton of issues. They came back up and running very smoothly. So very impressed and kudos to them. So the pandemic, in our view, really impacted the 2020 model more than the 2021 model. We're very cautiously optimistic, I would say, about the 2021 model. We haven't seen any significant delays with the 2021 model. However, we are keeping our eye on a few things. So number one, we're seeing some challenges with the upfitters and delays at the upfitters. So they're experiencing things like labor shortages and part shortages. And so where we are seeing delays, it's typically because that vehicle is sitting at the upfitter longer than normal. So we're watching that. Secondly, we're just looking at their whole logistics system and transportation. So we're heading into months that are typically very heavy volume, and it's the winter. So we're, ice storms, snowstorms that can cause challenges with the logistics system. So watching that. And the last one I'll talk about is challenges with the dealers that handle courtesy deliveries. So dealers were impacted by the pandemic, and a lot of their staff that handled courtesy deliveries in commercial vehicles are no longer there. And so they knew that forwards and backwards, they were the experts, and they're not there anymore. And so we're starting to see, or we have seen delays where once the vehicle gets to the dealer, it's then being delayed and they're not moving through that PDI process and plating process as quickly as they normally did. So we're working with the dealers and the OEMs to speed up that process as well. So those are the three areas we're watching, but overall, it's been good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think when they write the history of the automotive industry, it's just a remarkable, after an 8-week shutdown, to come up as quickly as they did with the minimal amount of problems. Of course, you're going to have hiccups, but it was just phenomenal. And I share the kudos with you to the automotive industry.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the tactical end of it, and let's start talking about what fleet managers can do to minimize order to delivery times. What have you seen on your end?
Yeah, so I think we all know there's just some things that are simply out of our control. So you can't control the weather, you can't control quality holds or supplier shortages. And so you kind of just have to make peace with that. But my best advice is two things. It's be proactive and control what you can control. And I'll give four specific things that you can do. So number one, order early as you can in that model year. So what you're doing when you do that is, number one, you're securing production for that specific model, but also you are making sure that you're avoiding kind of the end of the model year challenges where they have heavy volume or logistic challenges, rail car shortages. You're trying to prevent that as much as possible. Use need buy dates where you can. So if you're in the month of September, for example, you don't need that vehicle till April, still order it in September and use a need buy date, which is essentially requesting a future production date. That way you secure that allocation. So that's number one, order early. Number two is be very mindful upfront of the upfitter that you choose if you need an upfitter. So there's many options. There's ship through options, there's drop ship options, there's local aftermarket outfitters that you can use. So depending on what you need, plan that out. Call Upfitters. What is their lead times? Do they have labor shortages? Can they handle multiple pieces of equipment at once so the vehicle only has to make one stop rather than multiple stops? You have a plan and do your homework and research so you can choose the best upfitter as possible for that, for your specific needs. The third thing is initial registrations, and this actually gets overlooked a lot. We probably all know that DMVs are behind because of the pandemic. So what you don't want to run into is you've done everything out front, right? The vehicle gets through the logistics process really smoothly. It's ready to go, and you don't have any plates or a temp tag, and it's not registered, and that prevents the vehicle from being on the road. So my advice is to start that initial registration process as quickly and as soon as possible so that you can make sure that when the vehicle's ready, you can get it plated or temp tagged to get that vehicle on the road. It takes longer now than it did in the past, so something fleet managers need to be aware of. And last but not least is considering the last mile of your delivery and making sure that you have a plan for that up front. In the past, I know, at least speaking from my perspective, we used to rely a lot on dealers to deliver the vehicle to the end user driver. And we're seeing dealers, I just talked about them being short staffed, they're less willing to do that today than they were a year ago. And so have a plan. Don't let that be another reason for a delay. Will the client or the driver come pick it up from the dealer? Will the dealer deliver it? Do you need a third party transporter to help you get that last mile delivery? So those are the four areas that I would say, if you can get those under control and control what you can control, you'll be in the best possible spot.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent advice, and it's proven advice. I mean, fleet managers that do follow those rules, tend to experience less hiccups in terms of their order to delivery process. Let's take a little bit deeper dive into the upfitter section about what fleets can do to kind of expedite this turnaround time. You cited that upfitters currently are experiencing labor shortages, part shortages. Well, what is the forecast in those areas, and how long do you think that's going to be continuing?
So we have seen some improvements. I think it was the worst, I would say, in the summer, and we are seeing, they're adjusting to this, so we're seeing improvements already. And so I expect to see it continue to improve, although we might see a dip as we get into the busy season in the spring. So we're watching it. In addition to picking, I mentioned before, pick the right upfit vendor up front. But I also have two other things once you've already selected that upfitter that you can do to minimize delays. And that would be, number one, send the purchase order to that upfitter as soon as you order the vehicle. Allow them as much time as possible to order those parts or equipment and to get that vehicle on their schedule. So at the time of order, get that purchase order out. And then the second step that we recommend is when that vehicle hits produced or ship status, follow up with that upfitter. Give them a call, send them an email. Hey, this vehicle is in ship status, for example. We expect it to be there in 3 weeks. I want to make sure you've ordered all the right equipment and parts, that it's on your schedule and you're ready to go. So you're trying to optimize as soon as that vehicle lands that they're ready to go. And I find that follow-up call just reminds them to make sure all the ducks in a row, and it sometimes uncovers an issue where maybe a part is missing and it gives them time to order it and be ready on time. So taking that extra step can really prevent delays.
Okay, very good. And any forecast on what you think the balance of 2021 ordering is going to be like? I know we have the unpredictables with weather and so on, but
yeah, we are seeing 2020 some, especially for popular truck and van models, some early cutoffs to those models. We're not yet, but we're expecting some early cutoffs. So again, back to my earlier point, order early to make sure you get what you need.
Very good. All sound advice. And we've reached our allotted time, Angie, and I want to thank you for a great interview. And thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Mike.